At 70, Carole Middleton breaks silence on Queen Camilla that went viral overnight. Beneath the regal facade and polished smiles of the British royal family, controversies and power struggles have always brewed. And now those whispers have turned into a full-blown storm. Carole Middleton, the ever-supportive and fiercely protective mother of Kate Middleton, the future queen consort, has finally broken her silence, and her revelations have sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace. At the center of it all is Queen Camilla, a woman whose entry into the royal family has been controversial from the start. Was there a silent battle for influence between these two powerful women? Did Carole see in Camilla what Princess Diana once saw? A force working in the shadows to mold the monarchy in her own image? And most importantly, how has this decades-long tension affected the very future of the royal family? Buckle up, because this is a story of power, betrayal, and a battle for the soul of the monarchy. And as you'll soon see, it's far from over. A royal storm unleashed. For years, Carole Middleton had been known as a woman who preferred to stay behind the scenes, quietly supporting her daughter, Princess Kate, without ever drawing attention to herself. She had always played her role with careful precision, never too outspoken, never too intrusive, just a poised and dignified presence who knew how to navigate the fine line between being involved and being overbearing. So, when news broke that Carole had finally spoken out against Queen Camilla, it was nothing short of explosive, and it went viral overnight. This wasn't just a fleeting tabloid rumor or an exaggerated whisper in royal circles. It was a full-blown scandal that had thrown Buckingham Palace into a frenzy. Over decades, the royal family had endured its fair share of controversies, from infidelity to financial mismanagement to public betrayals. However, this was something different. Carole's decision to break her silence wasn't just about a petty feud or a personal grievance. It was about something deeper, something that had been simmering for years, a power struggle that had been carefully hidden behind palace walls, and now, for the first time, was being exposed for the world to see. While the public has always watched Queen Camilla and Carole Middleton standing side by side at royal events, those who have followed the monarchy closely know what kind of tensions have always brewed inside. Their paths, their personalities, and their very existence in the royal orbit had been on a collision course from the moment Kate Middleton stepped into royal life. And finally, at the age of 70, Carole finally broke her silence, and it became clear that this was a long-due fight for influence, a battle for control, and a moment of reckoning for the monarchy itself. A few years in the making. To understand why Carole's reportedly shocking statement has sent shockwaves through the royal family, we must go back to where it all began, the day Kate Middleton became a serious contender for the role of future Queen of England. At first glance, Carole and Camilla seemed like two women from different worlds, connected only by their children's marriage. But beneath the surface, their differences ran even deeper. They were polar opposites in every way. Camilla had been raised in aristocratic circles where lineage and social class dictated one's worth. She understood the unspoken rules of the monarchy, who belonged, who didn't, and more importantly, who should be allowed in. Carole, on the other hand, had built her family's fortune from scratch. She had worked her way up, ensuring that her children had access to the very best opportunities, despite coming from a background that, by royal standards, was considered middle class. She wasn't born into nobility, but she had something far more powerful: determination, resilience, and a vision for the future. The cracks in their relationship started forming early. Camilla had never fully embraced Kate as a true aristocratic match for William, and while she never openly voiced her opinions, her subtle digs and quiet dismissals didn't go unnoticed by Carole. There were murmurs that Camilla had often questioned Kate's ability to handle the pressures of royal life, hinting that she lacked the refined upbringing and social polish required to stand alongside William as his queen. Carole, who was always observant, picked up on every unspoken slight and every calculated move that suggested Camilla viewed Kate, and by extension, the Middletons, as outsiders. And yet, Carole remained silent, watching from the sidelines, supporting her daughter without engaging in a public battle. But silence doesn't mean acceptance, and as the years passed, the tension only grew. The battle lines were being drawn, and neither woman was willing to back down. Diana's shadow, the ghost that haunts Camilla. One of the biggest unspoken truths in the royal family is that Princess Diana never really left. Though she was gone, her presence remained woven into the very fabric of the monarchy, influencing decisions, shaping public perception, and, most notably, haunting the woman who had once been considered her biggest rival. Camilla had spent decades trying to repair her reputation, working to transition from the other woman to the rightful queen consort. But no matter how many years passed, no matter how many royal engagements she attended, there was one thing she could never change: the public's unwavering devotion to Diana. And then came Kate Middleton, a young woman who, to many, embodied the same grace, warmth, and relatability that Diana had been known for. From the moment Kate stepped into the spotlight, comparisons to Diana were inevitable. Her natural elegance, her ability to connect with people, and her genuine charm all echoed Diana's legacy. Carole Middleton, having watched Diana's tragic journey unfold, saw the warning signs immediately. She understood how the institution could swallow a woman whole, strip her of her individuality, and mold her into something unrecognizable. She had seen how Diana had been idolized by the public, yet isolated by the monarchy, and she was determined to make sure history didn't repeat itself with her daughter Kate. Camilla, however, had a different perspective. While Diana had been loved by the people but never truly accepted by the monarchy, Camilla had fought tooth and nail to be embraced by the royal family, and she wasn't about to let Kate overshadow her. It wasn't just a matter of who held more influence. It was a battle over whose legacy would define the next chapter of the monarchy, and Carole was making sure Diana's story wasn't forgotten. The silent battle for power. Carole Middleton had never sought the spotlight, but that didn't mean she wasn't a force to be reckoned with. From the day Kate Middleton stepped into royal life, Carole had played the long game, positioning herself as a quiet but influential figure behind the scenes. She knew that navigating the royal world wasn't just about tradition, it was about the back-end power. On the flip side, Camilla had spent years mastering palace politics, using her network of aristocratic allies to cement her place at King Charles's side. She knew how to manipulate situations without leaving a trace, and how to influence decisions without ever appearing too involved. But unlike Carole, Camilla didn't have a direct connection to the future queen and king. While she worked within the system, Carole worked outside of it, influencing Kate's role, shaping public perception about her role in the family, and ultimately ensuring that her daughter wasn't just a passive player in the royal game. The two women never openly confronted each other, but those close to them knew. This was a silent battle for power, and neither was willing to lose. Camilla's subtle digs and royal undermining. For the longest time, Queen Camilla had perfected the art of subtle dominance, the kind that didn't come through direct confrontation, but through small, calculated moves that sent a clear message. As per the reports from inside Buckingham Palace, Camilla knew exactly how to exude quiet authority on Kate at royal events, whether it was in who she chose to speak to, how she positioned herself in photographs, or the seemingly offhand remarks that carried layers of meaning. Camilla had spent decades mastering the power games of the monarchy, and when Kate Middleton joined the royal family, she wasn't about to make things easy for her. Carole Middleton, however, had sharp instincts. She could sense the undertones of exclusion, the delicate maneuvering of power, the way Camilla's presence alone could alter the dynamic of a room. The jabs weren't always obvious, but they were there. A backhanded compliment, a slight smirk when Kate made a statement, a remark that on the surface seemed harmless but carried an undeniable sting. Most royal insiders suggested it was all a neutral observation, but those close to Carole claimed it was a reminder of Kate's outsider status, an unspoken suggestion that Kate had somehow stumbled into royalty, rather than rightfully earned her place as the future queen consort. So Carole chose a different strategy: observation and patience. She knew that real power wasn't in responding to every slight, but in choosing the right moment to push back. And that moment was fast approaching. The royal wedding and the grandmother rivalry. If there was one event that brought the tensions between Carole and Camilla to a breaking point, it was the wedding of Prince William and Kate Middleton. For the world, it was a fairy tale spectacle, a union of love and legacy. But behind the scenes, it was a battlefield of influence, with two powerful women vying for control over how history would remember this day. Carole Middleton wanted her daughter to have the wedding of her dreams, not just an event dictated by royal traditions, but a celebration that reflected Kate's personality, modern values, and the warmth of the Middleton family. Camilla, however, saw the wedding as a moment to reinforce the royal hierarchy, a public display that should emphasize duty over sentiment. Sources even reported that the tension between Carole and Camilla was palpable during the planning, with Carole pushing for personal touches that highlighted the Middletons, while Camilla was keen on maintaining a more traditional, formal royal image. One reported clash came when Camilla insisted on limiting the presence of non-royal guests, something Carole fought against in order to ensure Kate's family had a prominent place. The wedding itself was breathtaking, but the behind-the-scenes tension was palpable. While Kate smiled through every moment, Carole knew that this day wasn't just about vows and celebrations. It was the first real battle in a much larger war. But if Carole thought the wedding power struggles were behind her post-marriage ceremony, she quickly realized that the real battle was just beginning. Because once Prince George and Princess Charlotte were born, a new question arose: who would shape the upbringing of the future heirs to the throne? Camilla, as the Duchess of Cornwall and future queen consort, saw herself as an influential figure in the royal family. She believed that royal traditions should dictate how the next generation was raised, ensuring that the children understood their duty, their legacy, and the weight of their future responsibilities. Carole, however, had a very different philosophy. She had always been hands-on with her children, ensuring that they had a grounded, supportive, and emotionally secure upbringing. Kate, having been raised with strong family values and warmth, naturally leaned towards Carole's parenting style, wanting George and Charlotte to experience as normal a childhood as possible. The tension was never spoken outright, but it was evident. Camilla often insisted on traditional royal protocols, making comments about how the children should be exposed to more aristocratic circles. Carole, on the other hand, was frequently seen spending time with the children, engaging them in ordinary activities like cooking and outdoor play, something that Camilla reportedly saw as too casual for royal heirs. While Carole's active presence in her grandchildren's lives was widely celebrated, Camilla's relationship with her step-grandchildren was much less publicized. Though Camilla has her own grandchildren from her previous marriage, her interactions with Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis have been more distant. Some sources have speculated that Kate and William, preferring to give their children a more grounded upbringing, might be consciously keeping the royal matriarch at arm's length. Others have suggested that it's simply Camilla's nature to maintain a more formal, less hands-on role, prioritizing her own family and royal duties. But what if it was Carole who had a hand in shaping this dynamic? Could she have influenced the distance between Camilla and her grandchildren, wanting to preserve the intimate, family-centered upbringing she had given Kate? Some speculate that, amid the tensions of the royal family, Carole may have been the one subtly steering her grandchildren away from the more traditional, formal royal model Camilla embodied. The media quickly picked up on the contrast. Some referred to Carole as the modern grandmother, while others painted Camilla as the traditionalist queen. Public perception began to favor Carole, with many admiring how she had remained a strong presence in the lives of the future king's children, despite the pressures of royal expectations. For the first time, Camilla wasn't just competing with Carole in private, she was losing the battle in the public eye. Carole's breaking point, the moment she broke silence. Carole had put up with a lot over the years. She had endured Camilla's quiet dismissals, her subtle undermining, and the power struggles over Kate and the children. But there was one moment, one specific event, that finally pushed her to speak out. It happened at a private royal gathering, a seemingly ordinary event where members of the family had come together to discuss future engagements. But as the conversation shifted towards the children, Camilla made a remark that cut too deep, claiming she should be a larger influence on the lives of Kate and Charles for being the queen. The comment was dismissive, patronizing, and designed to diminish Carole's role in her grandchildren's lives. And this time, Carole didn't hold back. According to sources close to the royal family, she directly confronted Camilla, making it clear that Kate, William, and their children had every right to shape their own family dynamic without being dictated by outdated traditions. Not only did she confront Camilla about her controversial past, but Carole also touched on a subject that had long been whispered behind closed doors: the extent to which certain royal family members, particularly those in Camilla's circle, had benefited from their connections. According to royal insiders, Carole framed her comments not as a personal attack, but as a necessary reflection on the future of the institution. She allegedly raised questions about whether the privileges afforded to non-working royals, such as Camilla's sister Annabelle, were in line with the monarchy's values of service and duty. This confrontation was said to have shocked many in the room, with Carole asserting her position in a way that had never been seen before. She not only made it clear that Kate, William, and their children had the right to shape their own family dynamic, but she also emphasized that no one, not even Camilla, could dictate how the Middletons would navigate their roles within the royal fold. While the details of the private exchange were not publicly revealed, It was leaked to the press by a royal insider who claimed Carole had made her intentions clear. She would no longer be sidelined in her grandchildren's lives. The message was unmistakable. Carole had drawn a line in the sand, and she wouldn't allow the influence of traditional royal norms to overshadow the family values she held dear. The confrontation sent ripples through the royal household. The moment Carole spoke, it was like a long-held secret had finally been exposed. A battle that had been fought in silence was now out in the open. And for the first time, Camilla had met a challenger who wasn't willing to back down. Camilla's past comes back to haunt her. When Carole Middleton finally broke her silence, the fallout wasn't limited to just the present-day tensions within the royal family. Instead, it seemed to reopen the book on Queen Camilla's long and controversial past, dredging up chapters that the monarchy had worked tirelessly to leave behind. To truly understand the impact of Carole's words, it's important to revisit the years before Camilla became queen consort, years when her name was synonymous with scandal and heartbreak. As the world mourned Princess Diana, it wasn't lost on anyone that Camilla Parker Bowles, then Charles's longtime companion, had played a significant role in the breakdown of the most famous royal marriage in modern history. While Camilla eventually worked her way back into public favor through years of charity work and a carefully managed public relations campaign, the reality was that she never quite escaped Diana's shadow. To many, she was a symbol of the old aristocratic order, a world where connections and privilege outweighed morality and public opinion. Carole's accusations now seemed to bring all of this back to the surface. Was Camilla still playing the same games of influence and manipulation that had once alienated Diana? Did her rise to queen consort come at a cost greater than anyone had realized? What made this revelation even more shocking was the timing. The monarchy, already fragile in the wake of Queen Elizabeth II's passing, was now facing renewed scrutiny. And with Carole's allegations, the public was beginning to ask uncomfortable questions. How much of Camilla's influence had shaped King Charles's decisions over the years? And importantly, was the queen consort really the unifying figure she claimed to be? Or was she still a polarizing force within the family? The whispers grew louder, and the media began to unearth stories that had long been buried: financial scandals, power plays, and rumors of favoritism within the royal household. The royal fallout: William, Kate, and the crisis at the palace. Inside the walls of Buckingham Palace, Carole Middleton's critical reflection on Camilla's role in the monarchy changed the entire mood of the royal household. Prince William, ever the loyal husband and dutiful heir, found himself at the center of a storm he hadn't anticipated. For years, he had worked to preserve the delicate balance between his responsibilities as the future king and his commitment to protecting his wife and her family. But now that balance was under threat. According to insiders, William's reaction was one of frustration, not just at the allegations themselves, but at the fact that they had forced him to choose sides. He knew his mother-in-law wasn't wrong, but acknowledging that publicly would mean challenging the very institution he was destined to lead. For Kate, the fallout was deeply personal. Despite the unspoken tensions she had endured over the years, she had always tried to maintain cordial relationships within the family, even seeing Camilla as something of a mentor in her early royal days. Now, with her mother's revelations making headlines overnight, Kate couldn't help but feel betrayed. Her composed exterior masked what friends described as a growing sense of disillusionment with the monarchy. Was this the price of royal life? Watching her mother face criticism for simply speaking the truth? Watching her husband struggle to balance loyalty and love? And then there was King Charles, who reportedly responded with denial and deflection. For him, Carole's words weren't just an attack on Camilla, they were an attack on the monarchy itself. Charles, ever the pragmatist, knew that the institution's survival depended on its ability to project unity and strength. But with cracks now visible for all to see, he couldn't ignore the reality of the growing divide within his own family. The royal family's response was predictable: silence and damage control. But silence wasn't enough to quell the questions now being asked by the public. Would this tension spill over into William and Kate's roles as the future king and queen? Could the monarchy survive another internal conflict of this scale? For the royals, the fallout was more than just about public perception. It was about survival. The PR war and the monarchy's struggle to survive. In the wake of Carole Middleton's revelations, the palace's PR machine went into overdrive. For an institution that had long relied on silence and discretion to weather its scandals, this was unfamiliar territory. The public's appetite for transparency had grown over the years, and the royal family could no longer rely on tabloid fatigue to make the story go away. The challenge was clear. Camilla's reputation was at stake, and by extension, so was the monarchy's credibility. The palace's initial strategy was predictable: release carefully worded statements emphasizing unity and downplay the allegations as misunderstandings. But this time, the public wasn't buying it. Social media erupted into heated debates, with hashtags like #Team Carole and #Queen Camilla trending worldwide. Royal experts took to television and news outlets, dissecting the power dynamics between Carole and Camilla and what it meant for the future of the monarchy. Was this a sign of a deeper cultural shift within the royal family, with Carole representing modern values and progress, while Camilla stood for tradition and elitism? The public was divided. Some saw Carole as a hero, a woman brave enough to call out the monarchy's outdated ways. Others criticized her for airing royal grievances in public, arguing that the monarchy's strength lay in its discretion. What became increasingly clear was that this was no longer just about Carole and Camilla. It was about the monarchy itself, a centuries-old institution now facing the pressures of modern scrutiny. Could it adapt, or would it crumble under the weight of its own contradictions? For the royal family, this wasn't just a PR crisis, it was an existential one. Camilla's retreat and Carole's rising influence. As the scandal grew, Camilla's once steady presence began to fade. Public appearances were quietly scaled back, and those close to her noticed a shift in her demeanor. The confident, composed woman who had weathered decades of public criticism now seemed fragile and uncertain, her influence within the royal family waning. For Carole Middleton, however, this was a moment of unintended empowerment. Her decision to speak out had resonated with millions, many of whom admired her courage in standing up to an institution that often seemed untouchable. Carole, once viewed as just the mother-in-law, was now being praised as a symbol of resilience and modernity. Kate, too, found herself in a stronger position. With her mother by her side, she was able to navigate the royal world with a renewed sense of purpose. Together, Carole and Kate represented a new vision of the monarchy, one that prioritized family, authenticity, and adaptability. For Camilla, the fallout served as a harsh reminder that public opinion could shift in an instant, and that no amount of tradition could protect her from the consequences of her past. The monarchy at a crossroads. What comes next? The British monarchy has always been a symbol of resilience, adapting to changing times while maintaining its core traditions. But now, in the wake of this scandal, it faces its greatest challenge yet: a battle between the past and the future, between tradition and progress, between duty and transparency. Carole Middleton's revelations have forced the monarchy to confront uncomfortable truths about its internal dynamics, its cultural relevance, and its ability to connect with a modern audience. Will it choose to evolve, or will it cling to the ways of the past? For Kate and William, this is a pivotal moment. As the future king and queen, they have an opportunity to reshape the monarchy into an institution that reflects the values of the people they serve. But doing so will require difficult decisions, sacrifices, and a willingness to break away from the status quo. One thing is certain: the monarchy is at a crossroads, and its next steps will define its future for generations to come. And as for Carole Middleton, she may not wear a crown, but her voice has already left an indelible mark on the history of the royal family.